Right on time. No, that's mine. It is 7 p.m. Do you have one? Time to call the Monday, September 18th, 2023 Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission workshop meeting to order. Staff would please note the presence of a quorum.
Ms. Berkman?
Here.
Mr. Day? Mr. Jorge?
Here.
Mr. Johns? Ms. Keller? Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
And Ms. Bolger.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. To my knowledge, there are no changes to announce to our agenda. We are proceeding as has been published. So we move on to approval of the minutes of our September 5th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion regarding the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the September 5th, 2023 APC minutes.
Thank you. We have a motion from Andre Molly. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Cindy Spolger. We're all present, no virtual, so we can do this by voice vote. Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? Minutes are approved. What would that be? 6-0. The rules and procedures are next. If staff would review whatever it is that's applicable to tonight's meeting that does not have a public hearing but does have a workshop item.
Yep, so this evening is a workshop meeting. So general procedures for workshop meetings include the department will introduce the petition stating when the item was last before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission and the petitioner will then discuss the changes made to the ordinance using the staff report as a guide for the discussion. Once the discussion has been finished, the department will summarize the final changes that are expected to be made prior to the petition returning to the Plan Commission. In this scenario, it'll be returning for a public hearing at the, I believe it's the October 2nd meeting for this particular item for you this evening. General rules of conduct. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, then we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please remember to silence your devices. If you must answer them, please quietly exit the room. We would like to remind those attending virtually to please mute your microphone when not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, the consent agenda includes 2 items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd like to first say welcome not just to Westfield, but I guess Indiana and anywhere into the new frontier outside of Virginia and New Jersey for Wawa. So
And Pennsylvania.
and yeah, so welcome again, like I said, to New Frontier. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have motion from Victor McCarty, seconded by Dave Schmitz. Would staff please call the roll?
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Jorge?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
And Ms. Bolger.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it.
Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to our workshop item. Town Run PUD, petition 2310-PUD-11. Staff has anything to present initially, if you'd please do so, and then the petitioner can take the floor.
So I did not really prepare an intro, but just kind of some background. So as you guys might have noticed, this filing has not had their public hearing yet. So because this is one of our transition items, or filings under the transition rule, so technically it was filed back in 2021 before the creation of the workshop process. It's kind of in a gray area where as new things are brought in this case kind of a big update to the project, we have allowed projects to come to the workshop before the public hearing, just as like a refresher. We previously did this with Grand Millennium and Wood Robinson Briggs, and it seemed to work pretty well there. But this won't be a regular occurrence, so just if there are any questions or concerns on that, myself or other planners would be happy to discuss. But yeah, I don't have a ton of anything planned. Matt, do you want to take it away?
Sure.
Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. Is this recorded, so I state my name? Okay.
This is recorded,
Matt
so-
Skelton with Churchill and Antrim
Talk to
with
the little green bar.
offices at 116 North Union Street here in town. With me this evening is Adam Hill with Lore Commercial Development, the master developer of the site. Dale Pfeiffer with Epcon Communities, our neighbor to the north and now development partner. And Scott Ferguson with Lifetime. You may recognize Scott from a previous visit for the 161st and Union Street site.
You love this.
Like a calendar year ago.
Yep. So our project team is excited to be revisiting this plan with you. As you may recall, we went through several plan revisions with the Plan Commission and ordinance revisions. And I think we were just about to the point where we were ready to request a recommendation from the Plan Commission. And just based on some of the feedback and then some minor changes we were gonna make, Adam decided to just hit pause and reflect a little bit. And he ended up reflecting a little longer than we thought originally, but it's resulted in some great changes. We were able to explore opportunities with Epcon, our neighbor to the north, to allow for the continuation of the courtyards at Westfield project, and also to explore opportunities with our neighbor to the west, the Lofter family, which, as the staff report notes, their property has been incorporated into the project. And then also to consider other uses that would enhance the neighborhood hub concept that we've been aspiring to achieve. So with in working with staff on our procedural timeline, we I guess collectively decided that it would be best, if possible, to revisit this project while the existing Plan Commission and Council and its current composition are in place, since you have knowledge and history of the project. And that, out of respect for your time and our time, we decided to try to do this here between now and the end of the year. And I think as part of that, as Lauren mentioned, that the director suggested that this might fast track us a little bit by revisiting this at a workshop meeting. So our goal is to try to get back to the city council for adoption consideration, if possible, in November or December. With that, I'll walk through the plan real quick. Just quickly, the Lofter property represents this portion over here. It's been incorporated. We've also worked extensively with the Miller family to the west to develop a plan that they are acceptable to. So they've been great to work with. I might just walk through the character exhibits really quickly.
Yeah, do you want my mouse?
I don't think so. It's really simple. I think for those of you who are fans of pictures, these pictures are really designed to represent what will be constructed under the standards that are included in the PUD ordinance. The staff had suggested that they would like us to have a PUD that is more textually based and less tying to pictures, because it's more difficult to administer, and I totally get it. But there's not a lot of guesswork with the courtyards of Westfield project. The courtyards, if you want to show the courtyards one. These are being built today, and that's what they look like. They're beautiful homes, and I think there's even, do you have one or two models out there?
One model.
There's one model there. There's one in Carmel. And the clubhouse can be open, but it is absolutely beautiful. So anyway, this is the northern portion of the site, would be the courtyards. This also allows the opportunity for Epcon to introduce to the Indianapolis market its attached home right here. Yeah, cool. And these are, for lack of a better word, we've referred to them as townhomes in the PUD ordinance, but I think that's misleading. These are really two-story attached homes Same EPCON quality, same materials, same architectural standards. They just happen to be attached in the courtyards or in the back of the homes instead of on the sides. And so you have these in what other markets?
3 other markets currently.
Okay, and so this is just a first here, so they're excited to introduce that here in Westfield. And I think you've got a Zionsville project, about to have a Noblesville project. We got a Westfield project and Carmel, right?
And Fishers.
And Fishers, thank you. And so, and then Lifetime, this is a health and wellness club, specifically Lifetime. This provides for more that neighborhood hub type of daily services and visits from the neighboring community. Very high architecture. They're basically adhering to the 32 overlay standards, and there will be one exception that is not reflected in the draft that you have right now. And we propose to include an alternative standard to address it, but it's the 4-foot recessed bump out requirement of the 32 overlay zone. For this, there are some, but it's not gonna be at the intervals or to the extent of the requirement in the 32 overlay zone. But you can tell it's high architecture, lots of glass, lots of texture changes and color changes, so we think we're gonna be able to come up with some language that will satisfy you. And then lastly, but not least, Laura Corp will be building its commercial buildings. This is the same quality and character that you saw in the previous proposal last year. So I think Lauren did a great job in her staff report of highlighting the comprehensive plan, but the specific language that has been our aspiration is to provide goods and services used by nearby residents on a day-to-day basis. Just to put things into perspective, and I know the Plan Commission probably doesn't care as much about this as the City Council might, but there was an article in the IBJ this morning, if you saw it, that announcing the city's success in attracting a $20 million pharma tech company to Westfield. That's a big deal.
I think they were hiring 50 up to 50.
Yeah. And so that's a big thing to celebrate, but just to keep things into perspective, this is an over a $100 million project. So, I mean, this is not small potatoes either. So, and we're not asking for anything. So, with that, I'll stop and respond to questions that you folks have, and if there's any discussion topics, we're happy to work through them.
Thank you. You're welcome to volunteer to pay 3% the residents 1, similar to, what the commercial
Well, the
deals do.
The Lifetime and the retail will pay 3%.
Yeah, this is true. Do you have that component? Plan commissioners, let's start the workshop. Anybody have questions, concerns, things that they would love to get off their mind first?
I'll start.
Feel free.
There were a few comments at council. One was a letter of support that we were hoping to get there from the neighbor to the west, just so we could have that on record that they were supportive. I know I had some issues, one of them being the streetscape that we're looking at with this configuration for Town Road. One of my biggest concerns was the big parking field and how that's not broken up and how that's, this is supposed to be a villagey kind of center, as you've said, and I think in its current configuration, I'm not feeling that. It's a very big building, and to be fronted with that much parking on Town Road, and that's the first thing you see coming in from Carmel into Westfield, giant parking field.
And just so everybody knows too, I mean, we've probably had 10 different layouts for this site, trying to make it work, and one of the important discussion items we had with the Miller family was that they wanted to make sure that these things were on this side of the building, you know, closer to the higher trafficked, areas and farther from their home. And I'm sure Epcon probably, would like that too. But it's no accident that it's laid out this way. But, did you have some ideas you wanted to throw out there? What?
Well, I mean, optimally, I'd like to see the parking broken up around the building and/or it redesigned. You know, I think it'd be nice if there was actually the commercial buildings, for instance, if one was actually, at least one was on town, more up to the street with parking in the back, perhaps, to bring that.
This or the?
I think
Those,
it's one of
like-
the smaller commercial buildings. Is that what you mean? Like
Yeah.
up along Town Road to try to buffer
And
the.
again, I don't wanna design your project, I'm just saying that I think that needs to be reworked so that it's not a giant parking field.
And this is one thing I wanted to clarify, in your staff report, which was very well prepared, by the way. The staff report, points out that there's a 0 front yard setback in this district, which is technically true, but it's not true, because there's a 30-foot buffer requirement between the right-of-way and the parking fee, or I'm sorry, there's a it had to do with this section. There's a 30-foot, buffer yard here that's planted, and so these plantings do not represent, I mean, it's much more, in the text of your ordinance, it's much more intensely planted than that. And there's a lot of distance there, and then you have the frontage place road, and then there's a 20-foot front yard, so there's like a 75-foot setback in actuality. It's just not reflected in a front yard setback standard. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I mean, that's one of my primary concerns. The other one would be the last, part of the housing, those, you don't call them townhomes, but they're, I guess, meeting a townhome standard, the 2-story. It's very garage door heavy, and also we're not seeing the rear facades, and I'm just wondering how all this plays out in, again, the streetscape, not understanding what orientations are gonna be where and what we're gonna be seeing. Almost everything just had a snout nose garage on it.
I believe they're all front loading,
Yeah,
so
they are.
they will be facing out to town, and then these backs will be hidden and then facing out.
So the first thing you're gonna see is all those garage doors on it?
Well, I mean, we thought you would wanna see that instead of the backs of them. I mean, that's why we put the frontage place in there.
Well, not necessarily a bunch of snout nose garages, that's also not,
Well, it's essentially two buildings that would be facing Town Road. I mean, it's not very many, and it'll be very nicely landscaped. We can show you pictures of what they actually look like. And the rears are the same, it's the same appointment to courtyards, it's just a different layout. They're just in the rear of the buildings. I think we can get pictures of those too.
how are those yards taken care of in the back?
It's all
It's all
Common.
common area? So how will those be treated planting wise in the rears?
well, so inside the courtyards are maintained by the owners, they're individually owned, so they're not apartments. So inside the courtyard that's where it's individually maintained, that people can garden in there, and then outside, everything else is common area, everything else is commonly maintained at least. Just like with the courtyards. Courtyards are the same way, no snowing, no shoveling, no snow blowing, no snow blowing.
No mowers.
Yeah, no mowers, no shovels, yeah.
Visually, I'm not, I don't think it's a great look to have all those just snout nose garages as the streetscape, personally.
So you would rather see it flipped?
I don't know exactly what I'd like to see because I don't know what these other elevations would be. I just know that in terms of that product, in our residential standards, at least it used to be, and I'm not quite sure how it's stated now, that we would not be allowing that kind of thing with the snout-nosed garage, with it being forward of the main plane of the house.
Is that, I'm not familiar with that term, is that, so that means the garage is
It means it
pushed
goes
forward?
beyond
Yeah,
the house itself.
I mean, we could
I
not
don't
build,
like that.
we could not build these unless you made them rear load, but that'd be a complete redesign and you won't do that, I'm sure.
What was the driving force to add this particular product type as opposed to doing more of the traditional courtyard style home that's
I'll make a
already?
comment real quick. One of the reasons that we sat down with Epcon is, one, they're a neighbor to the north, but a lot of the feedback that we got as we went through the last process was, we don't want 3-story townhomes. And so Epcon wanted to try to get some density in terms of homes up in that node along Town Road versus just single family. And so they had a good product with, it's essentially 1.5 stories. And it is 2 stories, but it doesn't appear to be a 2-story townhome. So we try to reduce the height from the 3-story based upon feedback that we got at commission to go more to the 1.5 story. I mean, Dale, you can comment too, but that was one of the driving factors.
And you've been looking, I know, for a long time, at least the couple of years I've been working with you to find a location to introduce these to the market, and this is a perfect location for it. I'm just wondering if we can give you a better idea of what it would actually look like, because I think a nice little line of nicely articulated homes would not look bad.
Yeah, just visually, I'm having trouble understanding what that streetscape would be. And again, we're talking primary arterial, and at least some of these are gonna be visible somehow to that. And from other parts of the development. So it is something I wanna understand better.
You've got a big strip of grass there to the east of the roadway. I assume that could be packed full of landscaping that would mitigate those garage doors, couldn't it?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a 50-foot right-of-way that would terminate, 50-foot half right-of-way that would terminate on this side of the roadside path. And then from there, there's 30 feet at minimum, 30-foot buffer area required by the ordinance. There's the width of the frontage place, which is probably, what I'm guessing, 24-ish.
Yeah.
And then there's another 20 feet, which is the front yard between the frontage place and the house that will also have landscaping. So it's not like there's gonna be one skimpy row of trees. The standards of the ordinance require significant landscaping in that buffer area. We can show what that would look like, I think. I don't wanna volunteer.
Yeah, we don't have anything right now, we're just developing our landscape plans for that, but, yeah, you're right, both comments are spot on. There's an 8-foot, walkway path that will extend from our current courtyard, so, yep. You can see the white, pathway that extends by our current clubhouse on the right-hand side,
Right.
yep. Yeah, right,
Right there.
no,
Just these,
Oh, you're right there.
looks like a sidewalk.
yeah, it looks like a sidewalk, following that line all the way down across the frontage of the development. And then to the left of that interior begins our heavy landscaping that we would install in between there, because keep in mind, our residents don't wanna look across seeing what's already approved across the street either, so we're protective of them and looking out at the town road. But these courtyard, these we call them courtyard towns, they're very much in line with our single-family development and our courtyard community, which is all courtyard centric, right? It's nice panoramic glass off the courtyard, trying to capture this indoor-outdoor experience in our homes. And the homes on the inside are tremendous. They're just to have a lot of custom features to the homes architecturally wise.
What's your price point on the?
We'll average about $650 on our single families and about $475 on the towns. But it's a unique product to this marketplace where the emphasis is on main floor living and there is an option to have the bonus room up top, but in order to have that courtyard look and feel off the back side, we have to front load our garages, and so that's why the design ends up the way it is. But I would imagine we could, flip the product around, if it's that important, to try and maintain, visual appeal from Town Road. Although we'll have to think about that a bit because it kind of conflicts with what we're trying to achieve in the center courtyard area, right? Where we want amenities and we want to make those sort of social gathering spots, and a really attractive courtyard feature common to right where the Epcon logo is, the dead center. And so we're just working on our plans on what that can be, but visualizing a pavilion area, fire pit area, areas that promote social gatherings for our product.
I prefer the corridors backing into a center amenity area like you've got it.
Yeah.
So I hope the concerns for Town Road can be alleviated with the landscaping.
Or more of a landscaping, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would obviously be our preference, cause it would sort of impact the feel and what we're trying to create within that community. And keep in mind, these are age targeted, just like our current product is, 55 plus. And so we're trying to build this community, within a community, by introducing the Town Hall product.
You use the term targeted, is it just targeted or is it actually restricted legally?
Targeted.
The Epcon community itself, the existing one is actually a restricted community.
No, it's not.
Oh, that one's not?
No, it's age
I think
targeted.
Del Webb.
Del Webb is.
Del Webb
I was
is,
thinking you were too, but
yeah, no.
my bad. In the available space, how much of a mound can you create to be able to elevate the landscaping to better hide garage doors from Town Road?
I mean,
I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
in love with mounds in all cases,
Yeah.
but
well, so
there may be something that you could undulate there that
So
could
part
provide
of
something.
the theme of this, if you'll remember from before, the idea was to push the townhomes were like right up on the right of way, so the walks from the front porches came right out onto the path.
Yes.
These are set back 75 feet past that. I mean, beyond where the townhomes were originally proposed. And so there's opportunities for a lot more landscaping. The mounding might look a little funny just because I think you guys are trying to keep with the four rail
Right, we're trying to
fence
continue
and
four
keep it
rail.
heavily landscaped
Yeah.
at grade, but I mean, it's something we could.
Definitely something we can look into. The other factor is, what easements we have and whether we're allowed to, mound on top of those easements. Utility easements is what I'm thinking.
But there's lot landscaping in the front yards of the towns, and then in addition to that, there's a buffer planting requirement in the area between the frontage place and the roadside path on Town Road. So there's 2 layers of landscaping before you get to the houses. And we can, I don't wanna volunteer Linda, if she's on, she's probably cussing me, but we can probably show somehow, what that might look like.
This is Linda Maneri, and yes, I'm on listening to you all. I think you're doing a great job of describing, so I guess our vision was looking at some options for you guys.
My thoughts are gonna jump around a bit. I'll come back to this point. First, I wanted to go back and thank you guys for coming back to us, because I know it was a long, strenuous process before that I've voiced frustrations with, and you know, I was somewhat happy with what was previously proposed. I liked the townhomes being directly up. That reminded me of what we're doing here with Union, that direct access. But nonetheless, it's the past, it's what we have now. 100% agree that needing that letter from Jack is essential. And what's tricky about this is, as you mentioned, doing what is best, not just for the community, but what is best for them. So in having to angle the parking lot, that is a difficult part. So whether that is putting one of the commercial buildings up there or a pavilion or something that helps break that up, I think that would be key, because as we know, you would take Lifetime and all the parking and commercial, exactly that is already approved for the east side of town, with what was approved, you know, over 10 years ago. So we want to basically transition out of that. We don't want a sea of parking, and we want to go to more towards that village feel. So whether it's, and I hate using this term, but the mounding, the berming along town road for the parking, or again, commercial structures, however that may be, how that might look, because this is now trying to help the community side, but again, I understand the balancing of wanting to make sure the Millers are satisfied, because they share that drive on that southern portion. But speaking of the southern portion though, you probably have a little bit more, Lauren, could you scroll down just a little bit, please? With the street frontage there, you probably have a little bit more wiggle room for parking, just because it's so far off away from 146th Street, but then you are again, that's the shared drive with the Millers, and they might not be too happy with that. And now, sorry, if you could scroll back up. I told you I was gonna jump around everywhere. So back to the whole courtyard thought. I think the layout that it is currently, it fits with what you're trying to achieve. My biggest concern though is, again, Town Road. I'm envisioning the problem that we have up at Lancaster off of Spring Mill across from Grand Park, of there's no mounding, there's barely any shrubs, anything that is hiding away, so to speak, the home frontage there. And then, you know, it's kind of jarring when you're driving down Spring Mill and you see all the fields, and then right across from it is home. So there's not anything really breaking it up. So I'd like to avoid that here, if there's anything that we could do, whether it be simple mounding to elevate the trees. But that's just the part that I'm struggling with right now, because I don't want to get to that, because it's either we get into a scenario like, again, the Lancaster, or another townhome situation over by Kroger on 161st, those townhomes there. That directly reminds me of it, because there's that courtyard feel within those townhomes, but as you're driving by it, all you see is the garage doors. So I know that's a different situation than here, because you guys have a different product, but nonetheless.
I just have a quick, those are excellent comments. I have a quick question specifically on the mounding, because we've heard mounding berms kind of a few times. Specifically by EPCON, and Dale chime in here, but is the goal of the mounding to create a visual block, if you will? Is that kind of what you guys are thinking on mounding, when you bring up mounding?
In my mind, yes, just again, so that way it's not so jarring when you're driving down and just seeing the garage doors, yeah.
Not so much so to see the mound itself, but to give the opportunity to elevate and create other landscaping opportunities that also then raise in height.
That's part of the, when I think about just urban design, and not so much this is like an urban site, but when I think about design in general, what I don't, this is just my personal opinion, what I'm not a big fan of is when you see a berm that was done, or a mound that was done just to block, and then if you drive by, you still might see the top area of the roof line. And it doesn't mesh together well when you're driving down town road or 146th Street or whatever. And so if the goal is to try to make it so it somewhat blocks visibility, I think we can achieve that through landscaping very, very effectively without a mound. But I also feel like instead of just having a wall of landscaping or dirt mound or grass mound or whatever it is, I almost think that potentially has a tendency to look worse than something that's very well designed with landscape that complements the entire street and development in general. So I just bring that up because if I want to make sure we're trying to incorporate the development into the surrounding area versus just putting a block up and knowing that something's behind it. Because our development will be extremely tasteful. I know Lifetime's will, Dale's product will be, and I feel like trying to let the landscape architects design something that makes this all mesh together will be way more better design than just mounds. And I'm not saying that everybody wants mounds, but I'm just,
And I like the way that you put it more eloquently than myself, and that's why I hesitated in saying berming and mounding. Because again, it's more just so that blockage of not seeing the garage doors.
Softening.
Yeah, the softening of it, thank you, yes.
I get it, yeah, and.
No, I agree with
The
that,
thing is,
like-
the quality of what they do is something you're probably gonna wanna be proud of, not hide.
I think
And
the
so-
goal, like just visually when you drive by, what I'm thinking about is you've got your fence, which kind of goes with the overall, you've got nice landscaping. And through some of the pockets, you will see some of the townhomes, you will see some of the development itself. But the quality and character of that development, it all just meshes together as you drive through. Now, I'm not speaking on behalf
No,
of
I
EPCON,
agree.
I'm just saying, I think that's, from me, just from a design perspective, I feel better with an overall design that incorporates that stuff versus block.
I qualified my comment as I'm not necessarily thinking that mound is
Sure.
a genius idea that solves all the problems all the time. The downside to coming to this workshop meeting, we're kind of getting out in that field right now, that there's a lot of things that you just don't have ready for us. And if you're gonna do this killer landscaping, if we didn't have this meeting and we saw
Well, this, I will be the
landscaping
first to-
plan that came along, whenever we met next, we might have never had any of these words because we would have been wowed by, you're gonna plant all that stuff? Staff, make sure it's all written down so that there's every one of those things that we're seeing that's gonna be there. So you may have exactly what we're looking for, we just don't know it yet.
We
So
don't
we're
yet.
reaching out to,
But I.
If
let
you
me
hadn't asked
comment
for a
real quick.
plan though, we wouldn't be preparing one because the standards are not, I mean, they're already in the document.
But I do wanna say thank you for putting us through a workshop, like this
Yeah.
this is extremely beneficial for us. Just to go through this process in this fashion versus at a podium and coming back numerous times, so we think it's extremely helpful, all your comments.
you may get a second chance. Because we still have to have a public hearing, we have to see
just
what
to
you're gonna
add-
bring to us next.
Just to add in a potential thing to noodle on, so this is the courtyards of Westfield, so directly north. This frontage here, where the rear of the homes face town, here is what's provided. So it's actually about 3.3 trees per 30 feet, whereas this PUD is proposing about 1 tree per 30 feet. But it does provide kind of more of a buffer, so this might be something to think about, find a middle area between, you know, more landscaping.
Just know though, this was for the courtyards
Right,
and it was the backs of homes.
right, I mentioned that.
And there's not 2 layers of landscaping, it's just one 20-foot strip.
Oh, you're
We-
right.
We
It's a
can-
different
yeah.
set of circumstances, but I do think that bringing it up is important because,
Shows what we have.
once again, talking about the view from Town Road as you're driving along, you don't wanna suddenly see this wonderful lush landscaping
But we
look
want-
totally
what you
different when it's supposed to look like it's all toothed together as one development.
This hides, and that was not our intention with the standards. I mean, if that is what we should be angling for, let's just know that that's the disconnect.
And I'm not trying to say in my mind that you have to shoot for the hiding characteristics. But we need to see something that's going to make what are pretty substantial garage doors relative to the length of the building. There
I
are
think what
two
we-
buildings, but there's 4 doors on each, 4 16-foot doors, and very little in between all of those doors. So that's what is leading to this discussion concern that we're having.
Chime in here if you want, but I think just from a design standpoint, what we would envision is, so that's what currently exists, right? As we move further to the south, something similar but not as dense as this from a landscaping standpoint when we get in front of the townhomes. And then less dense as we get down in front of the commercial area. We can buffer that commercial area, whether it's a building with some outdoor patio space or something like that, buffer the parking lot. We don't wanna create a wall all along Town Road. We wanna get less dense as we get closer to 146th Street and try to buffer it more with design, building elements, things of that nature. Is that fair for you?
I think so, yeah, I think so. I think what we need to do is come back next time have our professional landscape architect who's listening in to come up with something that
horse fence, the 4-board fence, and the mounding and these different things. So about 6 or 7 years ago, there was a task force called the Conservancy Task Force, made up of city officials and people that lived in this area. I'm one of those people, so that's why I have the history, and I served on the task force. This area has a lot of horse farms, a lot of people doing a lot of rural type of activities. And so one thing, as we kind of talked about development coming in, Pulte was involved in those conversations. It was how do we keep the character of this particular area, the southwest portion of Westfield, and somehow as the development comes in, incorporate these visual cues that blend with everything out there. So you'll see, I mean, my home has it's 4-board white. A lot of the horse farms have 4-board black. And so Pulte listened to that. So you'll see that in front of the Del Webb, and you see their buffer and what they did. I think that has mounding on it as well, and it kind of, kind of undulates all the way through with the trees and the 4-board fence. As you get down to Bent Creek, they also have a 4-board fence, and so does the neighbor next to them. And so all of a sudden, you get this visual appeal down Town Road where there's some consistency, even though there's different uses. And so in that particular, we even talked about wildflowers as something, because there's a lot of different pollinator areas in this particular southwest area where people have preserved their, areas with the wildflowers and forests and that type of thing. So I just want to give you that background that this particular parcel's had a lot of different ideas for it. At one point, some of the designs for the commercial buildings had kind of a horse theme, like a stable type theme, because that went with the horse farms of the area. And you'll see a little bit of that at Ditch Road. I would even say the architecture there that Estridge did is somewhat in line with that. And I'm not telling you to switch all your architecture. State Road 32, that's a very nice architecture standard. But I just want to give you that background that it would be in context. I mean, you have the Millers next door who obviously own a big rural property. And so having those type of visual cues would be really nice. And it would be very nice on that corridor because this, as Cindy mentioned, this is our front door to welcome to Westfield here. And it's highly used because this is going to go through at some point. A lot of these are going to dead end, but town doesn't. It's going to it's going to keep going to the north. And so we've got to be very careful of what this looks like. And what you do today will set the precedent for what goes across the street on the east side. It just will. And so we just need to make sure that how this looks, that it looks great.
That's really good history. It's funny, you probably remember Dale and I used to work together. And right when he walked in, I said, do you remember when we were coming up with the name of the development, Town Run? My family, I grew up on a farm east of Muncie, Indiana, and we had a lot of different animals. My dad still farms, but we had Tennessee Walker horses. And they would travel around and they had their trailer, and they would take the horses to multiple different areas and whatnot. And so when we came up with this development, I was talking to them, and they said, well, something horse themed, what about like run, something run? And so they're like, Town Run. And so that's how the development was named. So, thank you for the
Well,
feedback.
And you've utilized the 4-board fence in your project, haven't you?
Yes, yes, we have.
It's something we really have encouraged as these different developments have come up, and because of that, we want some consistency in this area. And I've heard the word, I know you're just using the word urban, I don't mean to pick on anybody on that, but this really isn't urban out there. This is about as far from our city center as you can get. Boone County is just, right across the street here pretty much. So, as you talk about like the urban density of the downtown and you move out, you're getting pretty far out here. So this village type idea in the comp plan is really what I think everybody visualized out here. So I hope that's helpful for some background.
We are working on a farmhouse kind of design, architectural facade for the townhouse, so.
Is that
Would you be in
something?
favor of something like that, that it's more consistent with the?
Sight unseen, I don't know if I can say I'm
No,
in
I know that,
favor,
but I'm
I'm in
just saying.
favor of the idea. I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody else is, but, I think that would be very in
Would you lean
context.
more towards that than, yeah?
I think that would be really cool. I
Okay.
mean, I think as we think about this area, you will, I just, I'll say it again, you will set up what happens across the street. It's just how things go. And
You know where
so,
the Ace Hardware is at 32 and Cary? You know how that architecture's kind of a farmhouse? Have you seen that? It's kind of a farmhouse architecture. I thought
Like
it
a
was
black
cool.
barn, yeah. Speaking of barn, real quick, just because I'm staring at the image, has there been any discussions regarding the different variety of animals that Jack has? And because obviously neighbors, I know it's not our scope, but I'm just thinking of long-term, the neighbors coming in there and they might be complaining about the peacocks and the roosters and wallabies and so forth, so.
No, we've had extensive conversations with them. We're actually building a fence. We've committed to build. They have a fence that came up to just past the Lofter's house. And I can't remember where that is. It's someplace right around in here, but we're actually extending that fence that they have there already from here all the way up to here.
Awesome.
And so they're and then we are just continuing the exact same landscaping standards along that property line that were already approved for the project to the north, so.
I'm just checking due diligence, just because
No,
of knowing what's there.
Thank you, but no, we've spent time with them. They're in Sanibel right now,
Yep.
taking care of their poor house.
I think a lot of the homeowners in Harmony as well, which are, an easy bike ride away, really had hoped to have kind of a village feel at Ditch as well, where there were some, restaurants, not fast food, but places with, I know you mentioned patios a second ago. And having more of that community neighborhood feel of being able to go over and sit outside and eat.
Or play pickleball.
Or play pickleball. You just can't find a court, actually, to do. But you have a lot of people between the EPCON and of course the Del Webb to the north, but you've also got some neighbors to the east where I think you could do some really special things there and attract a lot of people.
Completely agree. I mean, what we envision this being is a hangout spot. Some nice local restaurants, you go, you're having dinner, you see multiple people we love the location, the village feel is what we're trying to achieve.
And I guess I'll just build on what Cindy said and then I'll let somebody else give their input. But right now, that big parking lot doesn't feel like a village.
Thank you. I wanted us to go back there too, even though it was the first thing brought up, because when I first looked at this, I stared at that parking lot and I didn't have any ideas though. And knew that I didn't like it, but I didn't know what to do with it. Is it the minimum for the buildings that you've got there, or is it extra parking?
So
Like parking requirements.
it does, you can comment here anytime you want, but from a parking standpoint, Lifetime, the popular location and just in general, this whole area with all of the homes around it will be busy. There's no question about it. So I think they wanna have parking adequate enough for those busy times. That's not to say that we can't come together and try to create some other alternatives potentially on making it seem less like a sea of asphalt and more villagey feel. I can't comment for Lifetime, but I think we're hearing what you're saying, and we've got a little, probably work to do.
Yeah, that parking lot, it's pretty average for a new club. You know, parking is kind of like oxygen for our business. You know, if members are circling the parking lot for, 15 minutes because they can't find a spot, then, they're gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, we do, we've done 168 of these, so we're pretty good at, establishing the amount of parking that we need and to, so we're not maxing out, parking and having members drive around. And so, like what you're seeing here conceptually, that's the amount of parking needed to serve that club. And I just wanna reiterate, we have 168 of these, so we're pretty good at knowing how much parking we need.
How many parking spots is it?
I think that one's at 540.
Something like that, 535, 540, it needs to be engineered for, emergency vehicle traffic, right? You know, rounding corners for
Well, I mean,
emergency access lanes and stuff like that, so.
there's some discussion, and this just, we've had some discussions about this, and I know that Dale is working with some area up here for some of the amenities for his stuff. If this potentially could slide all the way down like this, that potentially could move this building a little bit further to the west is what I'm thinking. I mean, it's just, we have to sit down with the site plan and try to come up with ways. It seems like your guys' concerns, not so much over here, but more up here.
Definitely.
And again, you have a very relatively small space to work with, because obviously you don't wanna go any further where the retention pond is and the future homes, because that's the buffer that the Millers want. So that is a plausible idea of, instead of a huge round court, extending it all the way down. But yeah, the major concern is that C over there on that east side of the property.
Yeah, we can, I mean, we can introduce some more parking lot islands, on the town run side, just to, again, further.
For me, it's not even about just
buffer.
islands, it's just amassing all of that parking in one area. I mean, I feel like it should be around the sides of the building or something. I mean, I just think the whole thing could be designed
Need to huddle
better.
back up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably some things that I think we can do to,
Again, I think if you had another commercial building up on town, it would make it feel more villagey. It would be more comfortable.
like location. Cindy, do you mean like trying to get it in here just to blocks, to break up some of the parking, like in this area? A commercial
Yeah,
building
something
here?
like that, and that way it's gonna block seeing some of that, parking field. I mean, I'd still like to see it broken up, but at least it would hide it better.
If we do something here, one thing we can't do is we can't really block visibility for you. Right, you want the visibility. If we do something here, there's probably still visibility this way, and obviously tons of visibility still that way.
Oh, but their facility is gonna be a lot taller anyway than what you're gonna do, so
Yeah, it will.
I think you're gonna see it no matter what.
Everybody in the room probably had similar thoughts, myself included, about that amount of parking I'll refer to it as uninterrupted because it essentially is parking after parking after parking. Yes, there's a drive aisle through it, there's something going east-west that will give you some sort of a walkway and a vista to the entrance to the building, it appears. And there's islands with landscaping, but there's still just, as we just said, I wasn't estimating 500 and whatever that number was, but it's a lot of parking. But I also was concerned in the brighter green area to the south where there's other multi-tenant commercial buildings, which I think we've all kind of suggested.
By the way, sorry to interrupt, but the tint of that green was not intentional. It's just, like, that's the only part that wasn't real opaque. But go ahead.
Not a big deal. But, you know, some of the discussion essentially is could you take one of those buildings and put it up towards Town Road? But I also have a concern that you got the parking all to the north of those buildings. How does the part that's gonna face 146th Street look like a front? We
So
can't be
32
looking at a
overlay,
back, or go ahead.
the 32 overlay has four-sided architecture requirements. So there will not be a back to our building. If there is a back, it will be coming in from the parking lot side. Only, I can tell you, in our world, we want the front of these buildings to look absolutely amazing because when people drive by, that's the first thing they see. So if there is a back, which there won't be architecturally, the back will be the parking lot. The patios, what our hope is if we do have patios, we want some of the patios and some of the string lights and some of the accent stuff to where it seems more villagey to be on 146th or on the ends of the buildings, not in the back from the way we view it.
So you expect to be able to lease those buildings with a tenant who understands my customers will park to the north and they will come to the south to get into my business?
Well,
Because
there will be a
front and back
door.
access usually isn't,
There will be a door that will people will come into the building over here. But from an architectural standpoint, a prime example, can you go to our character images real quick?
Yes.
We did a development in Carmel on Main Street, and they have very similar requirements. The front, so right here, this is an example. This is what I would call the front of the building. There's an outdoor patio, you can't see it, but there's an outdoor patio right here, it's really big, and there's a restaurant down here. The back of the building where the parking lot is right here. So that's how people enter the building. So bring that up as an example because I think this is very attractive. Now, could we do different architecture over in this location? Sure. But this is the front of the building.
and I know that building well, cause that is my eye doctor.
Oh, nice.
So I've been there a number of times, I drive past it a lot, and I get what you're saying, that that's designed as a front. Never really feels like a front. It looks like a front, but it doesn't, yeah.
I think
Maybe I just don't go by at good times, but
Well, part of it
patio,
is-
I've never seen life there, but I'm probably not going at a good time.
Yep.
But I think of the building as being approached from the south, not from the north, because that's what you have to do. And I just pull in past all of that.
Yep. And
the side street that this faces is much less of a street than what 146th Street is. Which is why I think 146 really requires something a little bit more substantial.
Architecturally, I will assure you, it will look wonderful from 146th Street. It will look way better from 146th than it will from the parking lot, just because there's a parking lot. We'll have landscaping, outdoor patio spaces, all that stuff that will front 146th Street. If that answers your question.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but,
Probably activated a lot more than an eye doctor.
well, so that's the other, I was gonna mention this
The
earlier.
tenant
but-
I patronize certainly is not your best example,
If-
but
If there, with the
Exactly.
restaurants and some of that stuff, the sidewalk up there will be larger in this area, they just didn't need an outdoor patio. But that sidewalk will be bigger, outdoor seating, fence, things of that nature that will be utilized a lot more.
Similar to the Tzatziki's with the patio space.
Yeah, so like, this is a building we did on 82nd Street, but you can see the patio right there, that's on the side of the building. So something similar to that, if not even a little more expansive, would be probably on the side of one of the commercial buildings. When COVID hit, at least in our world, and I know everybody had their own stuff during COVID, but anything that we build at this point, we truly try to activate as much outdoor area as we can. And it's highly, highly sought after. So along that 146th Street in the front, fronting 146th Street and on the sides of the building, we see a lot of outdoor patio opportunities.
Among the village hub permitted uses, first thing you list in A is a bed and breakfast, which is something that is not a permitted use in local business, but you're looking to have that incorporated here. How would you do that if you're going to do it? Is there a chance that this could be a two-story building with the B&B on the second floor?
I think it potentially could be a two-story building, the way the PUD is drafted, right? But I don't envision us doing bed and breakfast. I think that
It
was
doesn't
just,
need to be on the approved use list then?
I don't think.
Well, does it hurt?
If it's tastefully done, but again, that was like that's the last thing. We've never, probably the first time that we've ever talked about it is right now, for bed and breakfast as a potential use there.
We specifically added it during, that was like the very first iteration of the PUD when we originally
In May or
filed.
whenever, yeah.
And so it was added to provide that option if that option presented itself. And if there's a reason to exclude it, we're happy to, but it doesn't seem like something that we need to be afraid of.
In this context, it seems like it could potentially provide an enhancement. If you're not seriously thinking about doing something, I always kind of feel like, then don't muck up the ordinance with something that isn't really likely to happen.
Don't regulate it if you don't have to.
Push-pull here, huh? Point, counterpoint.
No, I was gonna say, I prefer that it just be removed.
You don't want people staying there.
It's not necessarily about that, it's just weird things happen, is all I'm gonna say.
You have what?
Weird things happen, and so I just feel better if that wasn't an option, I guess.
We can submit to your regulation.
I don't mind if it's there if you actually intended to do it, but if you don't intend to do it, then
We have no intention at this point. It hasn't been something that we've.
if you happen to have a second discussion between now and when you come back and you get excited, tell us all about it.
We may have planted a seed.
Yeah, you could bring the first bed and breakfast. Not opposed to it.
We have a little place in this community, it's called Grand Park, where there's a lot of, people that come to the community and need places to stay, so
I'm starting to
there
think
might
like
be
now,
viable.
I'm starting to think like bed and breakfast over with the pond view.
Not to bring it up again, you guys have probably gone over, cause you mentioned you went over different layouts, but this possible different type of layout. Lauren, could you go back to the map, please? So the second commercial building there on the left, yes, sir, thank you. Just flipping that over to the town road side and putting, wherever I see fit, and then lowering the tennis courts off to the left side closer to the pond. And so then you're kind of doing a switch to where you could add more parking there where the courts are, for whatever you lose to where the commercial building would be on the side of town.
If you did that.
Your restaurants wouldn't have anywhere to park.
Well, we would still have parking here. I don't know
No, I'm
if this
just
works
saying
at
if we
all.
put a commercial building on town road,
We can work.
your patrons wouldn't have anywhere to park because our members would be parking in your parking lot.
We'd probably have to, I don't know, we'll talk about it. All I was thinking is, if you could shift this down and still bring pickleball, potentially give you more room on the northern side for parking or enclosure or whatever.
Yeah, so you gotta keep in mind, there's an emergency overflow way that has to happen between Lifetime and the commercial hub, between the pool deck and your parking.
Are these lots
Can I-
disconnected? Sorry. It's kind of tough to see here. So these lots are not connected to these lots?
Nope.
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 Right, they're blocked by
So
the
there's
courts.
this pond, when it overflows, that goes through here. And the same thing on the north side, if you scroll way up, this overflow goes through here. And we really can't squish the building or squish the pool deck.
What I was saying is instead of squishing, could we just shift?
Well, let's not solve this here tonight, why don't we huddle up and figure it out?
Yeah, I hate to go down that path, cause it's not our job, but, you know, just trying to.
No, yeah, this is
make
laid
it work
out
for
with a
town.
lot of, you know,
But what you're describing, the villagey feel of that idea, it's all the challenges of accomplishing that within the site, I get it, but it makes sense here, the use is right.
Lauren, can you scroll down just a little more to the housing again? I'm sorry, the
scroll
other
up.
way, yeah.
What are your hours?
4 to
Thank you.
midnight.
4 to midnight.
That's interesting. You guys aren't open during the morning?
4 AM.
Oh, 4 AM, sorry.
If you understood that.
I'm not.
I thought you were like,
It's a
on
very
really early morning.
Yeah.
4-hour kind of
I'm a
situation.
later morning person, that's what I
So-
am.
It's 4 AM to midnight, and then, you know, cleaning operations stuff happens between midnight and 4 AM. But we like to have these hours for, you know, a lot of people don't work your typical 9 to 5s. You know, a lot of people wanna get their workouts done before work, after work. And not everyone's a, you know, 9 to 5er, right? Some people are doctors and have night shifts and stuff like that, and that's pretty typical with our 168 clubs we operate.
So are we using some land from that prior PUD? Like, looks like it's cutting through some of the townhomes there in the middle, right there.
So this right here is what EPCON currently has, right?
Yeah, that's
The
correct.
gray, like the gray area.
It's
So you
currently
have a
part of
little bit going over there. Have you built those houses that are in the middle? yet?
No, we have not, we've held off so
Okay.
that we can, right now, well, currently there's a road that terminates into a cul-de-sac in that
Okay,
area.
so
But
that's.
we haven't
all.
platted that area yet.
I'm just throwing this out for you to
Yep.
kick around. I don't know that it's the right answer at all, but could the townhomes shift over to the west and take a row of those out on town so that that becomes consistent all the way through town? So you would take
not
your
quite
single
following.
family, you take your single family and shift that, a row of those to town and then shift the whole,
So
since you haven't built it yet, those middle ones, and then it would be consistent all along Town Road from what you've already done.
The only thing is, this probably would serve as a better transition
Well, the other thing is you've got,
from what this will be to here.
Don't forget, guys, we have the clubhouse to the north, which already breaks that transition, and then the houses actually side. So there is actually a transition point there at our entrance.
So it'd just be a single row of homes then, so it wouldn't.
It would just look like the whole thing was, you know, the same
But they would
Epcot
back,
from
they would just back up to.
151 all the way
Yeah.
down
It
to
would-
the commercial.
It might just look a little out of place though, because if not,
You go right from
Homes being
single family
around.
to commercial.
Yeah, it's disconnected from the existing community. We're trying to keep them
All that
together.
together. Okay.
Yeah. I understand your point. I think we'll go back to the drawing board on our townhome product and see if we can make some improvements there to definitely get away, try to break up those 4 garage doors. I've heard that loud and clear. That's
Okay,
One of
That's
the
important
things
to us as well, we want that.
that we've talked about garage doors for years. One of the solutions, not always the best solution, is, well, let's just make the doors more interesting. Can we
Yeah.
add windows or can we add
Yeah.
decorative touches?
they will have.
I haven't brought this up in a meeting before, but one of the places where that happened was in a neighborhood called Keeneland. It's at Spring Mill and 169th on the southwest corner.
Okay.
Every garage door has the same treatment. They all got decorative, but man, my humble opinion anyway, they look horrible. I'd rather just have plain doors. I think all the doors in Keeneland came off badly because there's, you know what I'm talking about? Do you have a different opinion, or do you think that's a
No,
horrible execution of
For me,
that?
but now I wanna go to see it again to remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, the PUD is written that all garage doors shall have a decorative design and then options for windows. I don't know how difficult it would be to write in something that says like, 65% shall have windows and whatever. Can
Some
write in a
anti-monotony
diversity.
language like we
Yeah.
do just for the
Yeah.
homes themselves. Based on that example, how it was executed is horrible. I'd rather, like I said, just have boring doors. I think would have been better.
This is very, very helpful.
And you guys should probably be the ones commenting on your product, but I know from your predecessor, one of the things that Epcon likes is a little bit of continuity among its units. I mean, some of the thematic consistency of the garage doors is kind of almost like a community brand, but I don't, maybe you have a different idea, but I just remember talking to Jason about that. It's just a way of saying that you're all in the same place, it's not a hodgepodge, I mean.
And there's a benefit to that, I concur.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
How many notes do you have, Weston?
Well, multiply by 2.
Yeah,
Oh, you're both.
these make no sense to me already, but.
Well, typically, when we get to the end of the discussion, there's a
Yeah, we can do a summary.
little summary here. Is there,
That's what I was gonna say, like,
They'll give us their notes, but yeah, if there's.
just from our takeaways, I feel like there's a few points. One, obviously, the letter of support from the millers, and we're on that. No, we don't, that's not a problem at all. I'm kind of going in order of what I remember. Second is do something along Town Road to break up the parking lot, the asphalt. Third is townhomes. Do something along Town Road, just kind of maybe reanalyze. It may end up being just some additional landscaping, it could be a berm, it could be doing something with the garage, it could be a combination. But I feel like those were kind of the three main points. Is there something I'm missing?
Yeah, the big takeaways,
See it asphalt.
the big reoccurring takeaways from
That was the-
everyone's conversation was
Town Road.
the overall look and feel of the town road right away. So issues with garage doors, landscaping, softening, the large parking area that was brought up several times. Generally speaking, the appropriate transitions from the existing development to the north to the proposed development for which we were discussing this evening. So those appropriate transitions. There was several comments made about more of the look and feel and design of the village character. So that was discussed as something to examine as well. And then also I don't wanna forget about the commercial development along 146th. Just, there were a few member comments made about the look and feel of the architecture fronting 146th Street. So I just wanted to mention that because so much of the conversation was on Town Road, but don't wanna forget about 146th Street as well, so. Those were the overarching.
Before we leave that one,
Yeah.
that, we're not, I mean, they were adopting the state highway 32 overlay standards,
Yeah,
period. I mean, is there something on and beyond?
yeah, if you wanna clarify that with the members, that
Yeah.
I would do that now to get some
Yeah, cause
direction.
I didn't have that on my
Yeah.
list of things that needed to be.
That's why I wanted to bring it up, just to
Got
make
it.
sure that we didn't let that slip. So if that needs to be clarified, now would be the time to do that.
well, we're not here to design your project for you, but raise our issues and concerns, and so I talked about that some, but it's not so much in whether or not you adopt the 32 overlay as the standard, it's how you execute it. Somehow or other create something that gives, I think, a pretty important feel to the south side and everything you can possibly do to make sure that whether you have restaurants or no restaurants, there's gotta be some attempt at having some life there, not just pretty architecture. If there's nobody walking around, if there's no reason for somebody to go there, it's gonna miss the mark.
the whole village idea.
Yeah.
Useful.
Prop that up.
Thanks for the
I
clarification.
have one more
Village, kind of
conversation
the-
about a B
You
and
know,
B.
the whole village thing. Weston, I'm sorry, may I add one thing? Because earlier you all talked about amenities, you're thinking about the amenities, what they should be. Just as we get to that final PUD, if you can get all that in writing with pictures, so we really understand
You got it.
what it is, would be great, thank you.
And thanks for highlighting that, cause in the PUD as it's written today, it just states that the amenity section doesn't apply because originally I think we had it in our minds that there's already a lot, you know, there and but there's going to be more. We've already talked about like 2 or 3 items that are gonna be incorporated, so we can put that in.
And a lifetime.
Well, yeah, I know.
We could,
That's
with
an
the
amenity.
with the village
You have to
field,
pay for that though.
we view the lifetime amenity, we view amenities being the restaurants, and some of that stuff in the neighborhood buildings, and then you already have, at least for your residents, you have your clubhouse with good amenities, the pool.
You're adding the pavilion, a parkette,
A dog-
community
dog
garden,
park.
yeah.
Yeah, and we wanna link everything pedestrian wise too, like, we wanna connect our sidewalks to
Yeah, I think
everyone's sidewalks
connectivity's,
and everybody's sidewalks, so like, you know, you can get around on your bike really easy.
Is it your intent that the existing Epcot Communities amenity section and what's to come, whatever it turns out to be in this new phase, are usable both directions?
So,
We have different classes.
so
or
the
is everybody all
single
one?
family homes, or courtyard homes, which there are 32 planned, will be a part of the existing HOA community courtyards. Community, the townhomes will stand on their own.
Okay.
And have their own set of amenities and
And whatever it is that you've got in that existing community is sufficient for 32 homes worth of residents and not be over capacity?
no, we just met with our residents and we're gonna add more.
Okay.
They overwhelmingly want another pickleball court, so here we go.
Shocking.
Right,
that's the other
So,
thing too, we're trying to come up with an area where we can add
yeah,
one of those, plus you had like a dog park area, a little
Right.
dog run, that we're coming up with an area for that as well.
yeah.
Okay.
Just put it all in writing for us.
Yeah, we'll do, we'll do.
Thank you.
Well, and
Staff has all those notes
kind
too?
of wrap it up,
we
it's,
got it.
you know, once again, odd that we're doing this before the public hearing, but I'm sure some of those numbers are gonna come out to
Right.
us for the public hearing. So it, good that was brought up, so we can
It's always
just
about
tackle it next
amenities.
time.
Yeah, it is, that was their number one comment.
I bet you hear pickleball courts as amenities by the public frequently.
Yeah, it has
They could
become
add
the
some pickleball
thing,
courts.
yeah.
It's popular.
So you should try playing it sometime.
No hand-eye coordination.
So the neighborhood
Only
meeting is
video
on Wednesday, so we will also have notes from that.
Okay, great.
And I think we have enough guidance here that we'll be able to, Lauren, I think we'll probably be able to get you some red lines for the public hearing tonight.
Perfect.
Kids homecoming.
All right, there's
Thank
no other
you.
questions
Thank
or
you.
comments.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you
See
for
you
that.
and,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have choice.
No, the questions
everyone.
around.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Summarizing those discussions.
Not everyone knows how.
None of my notes made any sense.
Feel of the gravel.
Yours to not hurt. I think you can make really good money.
While they leave. You ever heard of a podcast called Stuff You Should Know? Have you listened to the one on court reporters?
Thank you.
That was
Thank you.
fascinating.
Thank you, have a good night.
Those guys are hilarious. All right. We have one continued item. Claiborne Farms will come back somewhere along the line again. Not tonight. Plan Commission members, any reports and comments for each other? City Council liaison, you've met.
Yes, we did.
Tell us what fun you had.
We met September 11th on multiple levels. That was a tough meeting. That was our first meeting without Counselor Edwards. It was a tricky one. And just on that front, I think within the next 30 days, is it October 2nd, that they will be meeting to, the precinct committeemen, to establish who that next person will be to take Joe's spot until till the first of the year, so. Anyway, that was a tough meeting. We approved the Traditions at Grand Park PUD amendment that was passed. And we also had we approved the ordinance for the issuance of economic development tax increment revenue bonds for the Front Street project. So that's 161st and Union. We have 5 PUD-related items that were introduced, Town Run, which we discussed tonight. The other 4 that we will be having public hearings on October 2nd are the, Wheeler Landing Amendment 7, which is the assisted living, independent living project, kind of that we saw originally on 186th. Similar, same project. Custom Commerce Park Amendment for a car service and sales center. Spring Mill Center Amendment for a signage overall package for that project. And the Wheeler Landing Amendment 8 for the YMCA building, which is, they just need a small architectural change from that PUD. The clerk treasurer's office spoke about issues that they were having with the ADP contract and some of the other contracts in that office, so they're cleaning up those things. I mentioned that there was a county council meeting I happened over here where there was the discussion of $5 million coming to help Westfield with our 191st Street expansion project. So I'm trying to get more details about when we will get that and when we'll get rolling on that project. Rob Gaylor, he summarized his deployment and efforts in Maui. So that was really interesting to hear if anyone's wanting to go back and listen to the end of the council meeting, because it was neat to hear what they went through for there. That's it.
Very good, thank you. BZA met.
Yes, we did, on September 12th, and heard and approved 6 variances, 6 petitions. First at the northeast corner of Shady Nook and 32. Variance of use to permit a low-intensity beauty salon use. That was approved. A pool location variance in Oak Manor was approved. Academy Sports, the new sporting goods store in the old Marsh spot, needed to get a variance for outdoor sales displays. Basically the same reasoning as why they had to come in for a use variance, because of the overlay having been enacted after Marsh went in. The B of A, the Bank of America that was approved with the consent agenda needed a variance regarding lighting standards. That lot is extremely narrow, and the configuration of their property, the light standards were too high at the property line, so they got some relief from the lighting standard. 2404 East South Street, actually right down the street here, on the east side of Dave Subzak's subdivision there, Mike Brochier's needed a variance of use for a really oddball reason. He operates a business in there now with automobiles, refurbishing and
Somewhat car collecting.
yeah, and it had to do with him needing an address to show a permit for some sort of license or something. He's not changing anything about what he does. It was a really convoluted kind of a thing, but that was granted. And it won't change anything about how he presently operates. And then the school district needed a special exception to be able to move the tennis courts. Tennis courts, I think, are already out, where they presently were back of the high school. And they're gonna, on the site on Shamrock Boulevard, where you enter the, towards the middle school and intermediate school, the part on the right where the old softball fields were, they're gonna use that for tennis courts and probably pickleball. So they needed a special exception for that use, and that was it.
Plat committee actually had a meeting
Oh, wow.
for a plat that almost didn't really need to happen, but Westgate has a potential expansion to the 80 acres to the south. So they're providing two little stub streets, which actually probably in hindsight should have been there all along in the first place because we like connectivity here. So now there's connectivity for what may or may not happen. And our October meetings are already canceled, so we won't have another one for a while. Community Development Department, any words of wisdom for us?
Can you think of anything going on?
Nothing to add, we'll have several public hearings at the next meeting, so.
So I heard from the council.
Yeah, so other than that, we're pressing on and, you know, happy to fill in for Kevin this evening, so. He had the night off, so that's all from us.
Watching, what did you go watch? Soccer?
Yeah.
Some athletic endeavor. No idea this kid could possibly have been 16 already.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you going all the way to Plainfield for a little kid? It's this little kid, he's 16.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, makes more sense. Time flies. We are now ready for a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to actually adjourn this?
So moved.
Mr. McCarty would like to motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Hooray. We're all here, voice vote. Everybody in favor of adjourning? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed to adjourning? We are adjourned at 8:27.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.